Hey everybody, welcome to episode 51 of the LiveCast Conversation With. As always, I'm your host, Gene the Enjoyment Coach, and today we have my friend Dion Siluch on. Dion is a serial entrepreneur who started multiple companies in a multitude of industries, such as cryptocurrency, seadoo rentals, and mobile treatments rentals. He has a knack for seeing opportunities where others see challenges. Starting his first company at 20 lit a fire inside of him to find ways to provide immense value to people through solving problems and making it profitable. When he discovered there was a market for mobile treatment center rentals, he was able to start the process of no longer trading his time for money, and he hasn't looked back. In his spare time, he has been reconnected with his interest in cryptocurrency and blockchain by learning to build apps to leverage the opportunities provided through the cryptocurrency ecosystems. Dion has been an active member of Toastmasters here in Kelowna over the last few years, participating in their competitions and becoming the president for Kelowna AM Toastmasters chapter in 2020. Dion is an adventurer who loves life and is building his empire to support it. He's engaged to his fiancée, Rebecca, and will soon be a father. Dion, how are you, my friend?
Hey, thanks, Gene. Thanks for having me on.
You are very, very welcome. So, a serial entrepreneur, cryptocurrency, and really, I think the big thing for you that's always impressed me is your knack for finding ways to make profitable businesses that don't require you to trade your time directly for money.
Yeah, no, I mean, first of all, I'd like to thank you for the amazing introduction. I mean, I've never heard so many kind words said to me all in one paragraph. So thank you very much for the introduction. It's amazing to be on the show. Yeah, I mean, just to get started, I mean, entrepreneurship was something that I fell in love with after I left high school and became a paramedic. I didn't discover it until I was already a government employee. And once I found it and I applied myself, I never looked back. It's been something that actually excites me and keeps me going. So once I discovered it, I just love it. Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about what it was like discovering it and how you came to kind of realizing, oh, I've got a business opportunity.
Sure. So I'll take you back a little bit. It was about 2011. And I was 20 years old, and I had just started with BC Ambulance doing being a paramedic. I went to school to be a paramedic, and it was something that I found easy in school, so I went with it. I didn't pick paramedic because I really wanted to as a kid or had any drive. I did it because I felt like I was good enough for it, and it fell onto my lap as an opportunity, and it was my post-secondary school. Everyone tells you you need to go to post-secondary school. That is how you get a job, get a career, work in 9 to 5, invest in RRSPs, and in 25 to 45 years, you can retire, and that's it. And that never jived with me. I never really understood that. And so when I was 20, I was at the ambulance station doing a night shift. It was about midnight. And I had finished my probation, so I had gotten my pay raise. So I was the same pay as all the other paramedics in the station, even the ones that were there for 10 years or 20 years, because all paramedics get roughly the same pay. And I had an epiphany where I saw myself in 25 years, and I was in the same place, making the same amount of money, and not very excited about the future. So I read my first book on business, which was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, pretty famous book. A lot of people have read it. And that was the discovery of entrepreneurship and passive income. So I discovered that, luckily, not a moment too late, because I was ready for it.
Right on. Well, as you were talking, like, well, it sounds like you were trying to escape the rat race, which is a big component of Rich Dad Poor Dad's thesis on what he's talking about in those books.
Yeah. The rat race that book was the first introduction to what the rat race was, and that was making enough money to pay your bills, and the idea that earned income is the only kind of income. That was the first book that taught me that there is such a thing as passive income. I have never heard the term passive income up until that point, which kind of blew my mind. When I was going to school, high school, or in courses or classes, nobody ever talked about the ability to make passive income. I didn't even know that was a thing. It was foreign. It was all about earned income, right? Trading your time for money. I was taught to get a job when I was 14, cooking fries at New York Fries, and then working at the golf course, washing dishes, and then eventually my last high school job was throwing bags at the airport for WestJet and Air Canada, being a ramp agent. So I was always trading my time for money. It was the one thing that was taught to me, and this concept that you could make passive income or trade thought process or abilities for money rather than time was a whole new journey. And since then, I never looked back. It's been an amazing ride.
And that's incredible that at such a young age you were able to take that book and start to move it forward. So what was your first step? Because kind of like breaking out of the rat race, it's a little bit tough, right? So what was that first few steps like you? How did you start taking what you read in that book and applying it? And where did you go next with it?
Exactly. Getting out of the rat race is really tough. But once you're out, you will never go back. For me, it was using the resources that I had to escape. And this is what's so interesting about the rat race and passive income. You can find opportunities anywhere. Like, it is endless. I've seen people get out of the rat race in the most unique of ways, including mine. Mine was something that when I explained to people, they kind of, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know that was a possibility. And that was just a process of me figuring it out. So when I finished reading that book, at the time I was working as a paramedic all over the place. I was mostly following drilling rigs up in northern Alberta. So I was on drilling rigs and facility sites working as a paramedic. And on these sites, they have these medic trucks, similar to ambulances, but they're 4x4 capabilities. And I was working in those, and I decided to buy one. And become what would you say, like a freelance contractor or something, where I would hire myself out as a medic business and provide the full medic service, right? So paramedic, ambulance, come to site, provide you the service. Great, except for you run into the same trap of many entrepreneurs where they call themselves entrepreneurs, but they kind of just own a job rather than own a business. And so I went through that hurdle, like a lot of people do, and I fell into that trap. And I was doing that for about a year, and I was struggling. And what really changed my mind, it was one of those aha moments. It was an amazing moment for me when I was heading off to Europe to backpack for 1 month. I was going to take 1 month off work, and I was going to go travel across Europe and enjoy myself. And when I was about to take my flight out of Canada, a friend of mine asked to rent one of my medic trucks. He wanted to rent it while I was gone. I think his broke down, or he had a job that he needed it for. And I didn't think anything of it. I gave him the keys and I flew out. I was too focused on Europe. A month later, when I returned, I got back. He said, "Thank you so much for letting me use your truck. I put about 500 kilometers on it, which is not very much. So very little wear and tear." And he wrote me a check for $6,000 for the rental of that one truck. And that paid for my entire trip to Europe, all the flights, all the accommodations and everything. and a light bulb went off. A mentor of mine mentioned that, when I told him this story, he said, "Why don't you make that your business?" And the next year, within 12 months, I went from 1 truck to 5 trucks to 10 trucks. So
wow.
That is the journey of my introduction into like passive income. So that was life-changing.
Yeah. So now instead of trading your paramedic time, you're renting out these mobile treatment centers all over Canada.
Yeah. So when I realized that was an opportunity, it was 15 months later, I called the paramedic licensing board and I said, "How do I give my license back? How can I send this back so that I can never use it again to ever trade my time for money?" And they said, "Yeah, you can absolutely do that. You can mail it in and you have given it back." And I said, "Here you go." In hindsight, it was kind of a funny situation. I had met someone who was talking about burning the boats. We've probably heard that term. You got to burn the boats. And when you burn the boats and you have no choice but to go forward, maybe it's a little irresponsible for me to give away my licensing, my paramedic license, and think that, because what if it failed, right? Yeah. Maybe it could have been something I fell back on. So to this day, I still don't know if like burning the boats is like correct, but that's what I did. And I guess it ended up working. So maybe it pushed me because I had no safety net. And that's what caused me to thrive and strive and, lots of errors and all these kind of things. But and then I was about 25 when I gave back that license and just never had a job ever since.
Yeah, you've just built business after business. So I was going to ask if you thought that like by burning your boat, did you feel like a sense of relief when you put that in the mail? Were you like, I'm taking control of my own destiny now?
No, it was scary.
Yeah.
I was relieved because I didn't enjoy the process of chasing rigs as a paramedic. That, this is a job, right? Like most people that have a job aren't super duper over satisfied with that job. So, it's, everyone talks about quitting their job and they, I'm just going to move to Mexico and live on the beach, right? It's fun to talk about, but when you actually do it, I mean, it's nerve-wracking. Yeah. But the fear doesn't really set in until maybe like a few months later when something goes wrong and now you really have no backup. So I burned the boats and it caused me to work really hard. So, I mean, I might not have a job, but I still work. And I do think there is a big difference between having a job and working.
It's an interesting one because like when you talk about passive income and stuff, like I don't want anybody to like get the idea that you're not working or doing stuff behind the scenes. You're building these businesses, you're building relationships and everything else, right? Like there's a lot of work that goes into it. And if I understand it right, I think when you talk about passive, it's like that you're no longer switching. I'm going to give you an hour, you're going to give me some money. You're going, I'm giving you some value or a process. You're going to give me money in return for that value. And regardless of how many hours I needed to put in to get you that doesn't no longer matter.
Yeah. Another word for that could be scalability, right? Yeah. You're able to scale your time because when I was a paramedic, I was worth $21 an hour, but there was no way I'd get to being worth $42 an hour because I'm only one person in one uniform. So unless I can do twice the amount of time, I couldn't bring extra value. I mean, I could have by going to more school. So I could have became, an advanced paramedic or a critical care paramedic and kept going back to school to increase the amount that I could make. But even then it has a cap. So for me, it was how do I get to that scalability where I can work for, I love the book, The 4-Hour Work Week. What a great title to a book. Who doesn't want to work 4 hours a week? That is an amazing book by Tim Ferriss. Yeah. How do you get to 4 hours a week and make each one of those hours worth $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, right? So how do you get to that? And through a combination of understanding scalability and different income sources, I think is probably the most important mind shift.
Yeah. So what is, looking back on, these last 10 years of building your company up, is like, what would you take away as like your best like lesson learned? And then how did that pair with like a fear that you had to overcome to get there?
Boy, there's just too many lessons. I would say one of the first lessons that I listened to that I probably affected some of my success the most is to fail fast. If you know you're going to fail, just fail faster. There's a quote that says, if you want to increase your success rate, double your failure rate. And if you're gonna fail, just get it over with, right? It's a Band-Aid. Just fail, move on, move quickly. If you get stuck on an idea or you can't push yourself to fail, if you're scared of, like, you've got to fail, and you've got to fail fast. So by time I started my second business, I had already tried to start about 12 businesses. I always had the mindset that if 1 in 10 businesses make it to 5 years, which is the statistic, and then of those 1 in 10 make it to 5 years, and then 1 of those 10 make it to 10 years, right? So it drops again. Yeah. But then only 1 of those 10 that make it to the 10 years ever do more than $1 million in sales. So like the odds are really against you when it comes to setting up a business. Like it's not. Yeah. So I believe a lot of it comes down to the business model. So if you are going to start a new business, try it fast. If it fails, move on, right? So I was always I learned that early, and the failing fast part is probably what pushed me to keep going and find solutions and not have to go back and get another job, right?
Right. Did you find as you got more comfortable, like as you did you start off with that like fail fast mentality, or was that something that you had to learn as you like went through the fears? And like, do you remember, can you put yourself back into those younger years and go, wow, how much more of a barrier to like be okay with failing was it compared to where you are now, Dion?
I learned that. I learned how to fail fast. Yeah. That wasn't natural to me. Well, I mean, what is natural? Because we often learn anyway. But for me, I mean, as a kid, I wasn't any different than anyone else. I didn't have some godlike courage or ability to not experience fear. I learned that. I learned that through reading a lot of books. I have an Audible account with unlimited books that I'm allowed to download. I have a budget for books, and I rarely make it to that budget. So I ended up reading a lot of books on business, and most of them repeat the same thing, which is fail fast, fail often, move on quick. So I learned that, and that was probably one of the biggest skills I got from getting into entrepreneurship.
That's awesome, man. With all those books, is there like a top few that you're like, these are the recommended books? Like if you ever go back to reading any, or you met somebody and like, Dion, will you mentor me, please? And you're like, first you have to go read these before we get moving on. What would they be?
Sure. I've actually have a list of favorite books, audiobooks. I can pull them up now if you'd like, but
yeah, let's hear them.
All right, let's do it. Okay. So off the top of my head, obviously you got Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The whole Rich Dad, Poor Dad series, I think, is worth reading. The first 3 books, first one's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Second one is the Rich Dad Cash Flow Quadrants. And then the third one is Rich Dad, The Guide to Investing. Those are like really fundamental books. They're pretty, grade 1. So if you're in your 19, 20, 21, like early 20s, it's a really good starting point. If you're in your like 30s, they probably still hold benefit. I've seen a lot of, any age really. Yeah. But I find that, once you get a house and a car and understand things, like maybe Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a little PG, but that for me was a really great starting book. But here, let me bring up the list of books that I find the favorite. So I actually have a list of quite a few. But Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. That's a great book.
Yeah.
The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. The E-Myth is a great book. What other ones? The World is Flat. The Alchemist. I love that one. Even that one's not even about money. That's just about life, man. Like The Alchemist is a great book. The Art of Exceptional Living by Jim Rohn. I'm also a huge Jim Rohn fan. If you can download, the nice thing about Jim Rohn is he's for everybody. It doesn't matter, maybe you're not an entrepreneur, right? Maybe maybe you like what you do. The Art of Exceptional Living is probably a foundational book on how to write goals, and it applies to everybody. So that Jim Rohn, huge fan. And the last one would probably be something like The Richest Man in Babylon. And I got one here just because I think everyone should read it eventually. It's called The Bitcoin Standard. So all of them are pretty much self-development, education, personal development, and then the last one's just about Bitcoin, because I think everybody needs to understand that part.
Well, do you want to transition a little bit into your experience around cryptocurrency and everything with that? Because that adds on to your entrepreneurial landscape.
Sure. So yeah, I guess my first bit of experience was in 2014. I guess it was 2013. I discovered Bitcoin. I discovered cryptocurrencies, and I got pretty involved right off the hop. After reading all these books on finances, you realize that the government has an ability to print money, right? So there's the inflation metric, which shows us how much the government is expanding the money supply and printing money. And inflation is just simply a tax on your wealth, right? So if you have savings in your bank account, it's a form of tax, right? So when you have money sitting there, not working for you, either generating passive income or appreciating with hard assets, your money is just devaluing, it's rotting because of how our money supply works. And so I learned about Bitcoin, and I learned that there was only 21 million Bitcoin ever going to be minted. And that was very interesting. And so I got into some Bitcoin and some Litecoin, and I started mining some Litecoin, and I was dabbling my feet. In 2014, I decided to start a Bitcoin and Litecoin investment fund. So I raised money through friends and family to create a fund, and I joined the Bitcoin Foundation. So in 2013 or 14, I flew to Amsterdam for the annual general meeting, and it was really cool. I met some this also happened to be the first bull run that I would be a part of or experience. So it was a huge increase in price very rapidly, and everybody was interested. So I got in and started my fund. This was a part of one of my failures, by the way. So talk about failing quick and fast. I soon learned that I had broken quite a few laws on how to raise capital and how to manage a fund, and that this was not a sustainable business model for the way I was going about it. I was about 22 or 23. I didn't know much about how those kind of things work. I only knew about Bitcoin. So at that point, I decided, you know what, before I get myself into trouble, I need to probably give my money back to my investors and just do my own thing. And then we ended up happening to go into a 3.5-year bear run. So it was a pullback in the market, and a lot of people forgot about it. So that was my introduction to Bitcoin and getting me into kind of where I am today.
So where's that taking you now? Like, you've shared that you've been working on some apps and doing some other things around that. How does that make up the portfolio of Dion today?
Sure. So the nice thing about rental companies, equipment rental businesses, is once you get the model figured out and once you get the customers in place and the branding done, and it runs. It's a tickety-boo kind of business. That's truly passive. I spend about 4 hours a week working on my main businesses of equipment rentals and vehicles and stuff like that. So I get to spend a lot more of my time working on new projects that interest me. Yeah, it comes back to that point of, Jim Rohn always says, do what excites you, right? Or maybe that's a Tim Ferriss quote, but yeah, do what excites you. And so cryptos excite me. In 2017, I again tried to build another crypto business around education, and we ran the first one of the first Bitcoin ATMs in Alberta. We launched up in northern Alberta there, but again, that was a weird business because of a digital asset. I owned the physical part of it. And within a month of it running, everyone had taken their keys and were keying and scratching out, they're vandalizing the Bitcoin machine. And I thought,
really,
what am I doing? Why do I own the physical asset of a digital economy? Like it just, it was supposed to be this gateway. And I thought, I did the analysis on that. That was a bad business, shut that down. And it was going to get into the education side of things, but I just didn't see, I still kind of do that, but I didn't see a good vision for the education. I was more interested in building. And so 2017 came and went, which was famously another bull run where we hit 20,000 a Bitcoin. And
everybody was talking about it.
Yeah. So that was fun. And then I had my interest keep going and keep learning. And now for the last couple of years, I've been working on more developer side things. So I built a program that does coin tracking and looks for hype and resources around each coin and how many mentions they get in mainstream media. So the idea was price tracking, and that's running and it's fine, but it hasn't really caught on for users. And I also couldn't figure out a way to monetize it. It was just something I decided to build because I thought it was fun. Yeah. And then just investing in crypto has been fun. But really what I've gotten into now is a couple of these coins that are act more like businesses rather than Bitcoin itself. So Bitcoin is the best. It's the best coin out there. If you don't know anything about crypto, just buy Bitcoin and sit on it, right? This is not financial advice, by the way. Read the Bitcoin standard, understand how your money is getting inflated away, buy some Bitcoin, you'll be happy. But there's some of these other projects that are more like businesses, and they have actual customers, and they're using decentralized currencies to provide actual services to paying customers, which interests me the most, unlike the Doge coins or these safe moons that only go up in price because somebody said they would, and they don't actually act as a true value proposition. So that's been the latest bulk of my time that I've been working on.
Nice. So are you into like mining some of these coins or being part of the networks that you're interested in?
Yeah, so like I'm really, really excited about proof of stake systems. Proof of work, obviously, with mining Bitcoin works really well, but proof of stake systems is going to, I think, win in the smart decentralized contract world, whereas Bitcoin will still just be the store of value, and we need proof of work to do that. We only need one coin to have proof of work and that is Bitcoin. So we don't need that to, like Ethereum and all these other ones are proof of work still, but they'll be migrating to proof of stake. So proof of stake is a really good technology that's coming out. And then things like LivePeer, it's one of these projects that again provides actual service of transcoding live stream data and provides it to its customers, which gets paid in cryptocurrencies. And but the price of the LivePeer is not based on an arbitrary value of how high it could go. it actually has paying customers because this video right now needs to be transcoded into different bit rates so that it's viewable to the customers. Most likely it's going through an Amazon or Microsoft transcoding platform, and this platform has to pay for it. So LivePeer solves that by doing it decentralized through everyone's graphics cards around the world and blah blah blah. It can get pretty deep.
Very interesting. Yeah, and there's tons and tons of projects that are out there that are utilizing blockchain, which is the undercurrent of what makes these cryptocurrencies a real thing.
Yeah, I think people really underestimate and overestimate the crypto market. So I was listening to a podcast recently that really summed it up, and it's that especially with crypto, but in general, this is probably true. People overestimate the short term and underestimate the long term.
Yeah.
Right. So they really overestimate what can get done in a year. And I was a victim of that. When I was 20 and I wanted to start my business, man, I was planning where we were going to have employee vacations. In the first year, I was planning on how we're going to write off a boat so that we can keep employee engagement right. And boy, in a year, I barely even figured out how to finish my business plan and execute on even the first step. Right.
Yeah.
I barely even had a customer. Right. So I really overestimated what you could do in a year, like most people do. But then in 5 to 10 years, you typically actually end up underestimating how much can happen. Just look at the smartphone, look at the internet, look at technology in general. People really underestimate how much happens in 10 years. So I think that is true for crypto. I think people are going to overestimate this year's bull run and underestimate what actual problems it can be solving in 10 years.
Yeah. No, I agree. So I used to be obviously into the tech world, and I had my little stint with blockchain, and I do still see that. I think the technology is going to be great as it continues to mature. Like, there's a lot of power, and when we talk about transparency and everything else, that tech will bring out. Now it's just a matter of getting it there and getting it past like the hopes and dreams. And then on the business front, like, there's so many people that are starting their business and they like to attract to the shiny things, right? Like, just like you talked about, like, oh, where are we going to do our corporate retreats? Where's the boat going to be? Be like, hey, the hard shit up for the first 5 years is like getting your customers, understanding your customers, and realizing the business you started is not the same one you've got by the time you get to that point.
Exactly. And this even comes into the new aspect of like, okay, you're trying to get new customers. Well, the kids growing up nowadays are growing up with crypto, right? So they are a part of the Web3 generation, right? Web3 being blockchain technology on the internet, right? So Web3 is this new thing that started, and it started with, I guess, Bitcoin back in 2009, where now you have kids being born where they grew up with blockchain technology, with decentralized currencies. And it's very easy for us to forget that our parents didn't grow up with the internet, but I grew up with the internet. So there is a big barrier between our understandings of the internet because I grew up with it. So I have a different look, I have a different outtake and perspective on things. And my parents do, of course, have different perspectives than I do. But I have to remember that my kid, because Rebecca and I are expecting to have a kid in a couple of months. It is my first child. And that kid is going to be growing up with a whole different set of circumstances and tools that I did. And the difference between my parent and me and them are going to be roughly the same. So they're going to be growing up with currencies that are digitized through the internet, that are going to be run on seamless apps that are going to be user-friendly, and they're not going to know any different about what kind of fiat currencies and cash machines. And I mean, cashless society seems to be moving closer and closer to a reality. So when it comes to customers in the crypto world specifically, I mean, it's the next generation that's going to take us to the next paradigm of what that's possible. So I think we're in the early stages of that. You know?
Yeah. Oh, I agree, and it's interesting, right? Because I've got 4 kids as well, and my daughters are really great at art and been like, oh, I want to be able to sell my art, or I want to be able to create a store. They're already like thinking about like taking their lemonade stands that they have out on the streets every few months and be like, what can we do to create a market? And like looking at the world of NFTs and everything else, it's just like there's so much room to go play and try things that you don't have to, like, if it doesn't work, you're not committed to it. Like zero like investment other than maybe dad has to buy like $100 worth of Ethereum just to get some gas to start the purchases, right? But like talk about like the low entry to barrier and the low entry to like tasting failure and being like, it's okay to just like play around and sample, right? Like I'm so pro people sampling things to be like, where do I want to go? Because so more often than not, most people don't know where the hell they want to go yet because they haven't had enough experiences with anything.
Right. And what you're probably teaching your kids, I mean, at least I hope that you would teach them, is to fail small and fail fast. Right. So take that $20 NFT art that you've made online, try and sell it on OpenSea, try and see if you can find a buyer, promote it, market your brand, and see if you can flip it or create a customer, because a lot of times that's what business is you have to create the customer before you start the business so that you have a greater understanding of how to sell to them and how to provide value, right? And if you can do that for your kids, which is fail fast, fail small, and get into the crypto, off the races. Kudos to you on that one.
Well, it's just I love to watch them, like even when they were younger. Like I think when they were the oldest were like, I think there's pictures of them being like 4 and 5 out there with their lemonade stand and umbrella and selling things and like learning how to talk to customers, and they still love doing that to this day. Like be like, it's a hot sunny day out, they'll probably be like hawking like popsicles and everything else just because they know where the walking traffic is, they know what it takes to get a little bit of customer interaction. I think that's just such a powerful experience to have, right? To be able to try it and be like, well, if we only made $5 this time, cool. And sometimes they make like $100 in like 3 hours. I'm just like, I might start going selling lemonade stands. Like this is a thing here, right? Like it's just such a great experience for everybody to go up and do some things that are uncomfortable, right? And just try. Because failure, like the sense of failure, I think is just this weird, like internal thing. Be like, oh, I don't want to see anybody to see me fail. But here's the secret: nobody really cares. They're so wrapped up in their own stuff. So strip that away and go give it a go.
Right. Another quote I heard that I love, which is success is defined by the amount of uncomfortable conversations you're willing to have.
I really just read that quote on LinkedIn like 2 hours ago from somebody else. I was like, wow, that is a powerful quote.
Like, how true. I mean, now it's a little different because you can have a conversation in different ways, right? You can join a forum and chat there, or you can submit code to a GitHub repository and provide code, in the written language of programming languages, right? So conversations can be have different meanings now, right? Whereas before, maybe it was you and I mean, hey, look at us now. We're not even speaking face to face. Right?
I know.
Over the internet, streaming, having an interview, and I can talk to you as if I was in person. But yet, this conversation, I'm, if an alien came and looked at, I'm staring at a blank screen, talking to myself, right? So, like it's things have changed. So, that's amazing. That's really good to hear.
Yeah, no, I agree. You know how I said at the start of this, I'd look up and be like, we'll be 40 minutes into it and time has flown by? We're at that mark now, and I still want to be respectful of your time. And I so appreciate that you were willing to jump on this episode and fill this spot for us today. It's been a great conversation, Dion. Is there anything you want to give a shout out to?
Give a shout out to specifically?
Yeah. Anything that you're working on that you want to share with anybody, or your own business or anything along those lines?
You know, I haven't decided when I'm going to announce the new project I'm working on. I'll probably save it, but if you want to follow me on Twitter or Facebook, obviously I'm there under Dion Siluch. But but as for a shout out, I mean, shout out to Bitcoin for fixing a lot of problems, and I think it's over and underestimated. So if you are inclined at all to learn more, I would just say read a great book called The Bitcoin Standard. Right, it's a riff off of the gold standard. Right, go ahead and read that book, and if you've got the time and energy to invest in your education, that's a great start. So shout out to Bitcoin.
Yeah. So today what we learned is fail fast and fail frequently, and get comfortable with it. Do a lot of reading and growing in yourself, and go explore and get out of the rat race.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I'm a big proponent of freedom, individual freedoms and rights, and everyone has the ability to get themselves in a position where they can be financially free and live a free life that they choose. Because security is often the opposite of freedom. Right. So if you want security, go to a maximum security prison. You know, they can provide you with 3 meals a day. You'll never have to worry about shelter or food or anything. You can just sit back and have perfect security. But I'm a big proponent of freedom. With freedom comes risk, comes consequences, and comes responsibility. So freedom can be scary to a lot of people, but that is, to me, the ultimate goal. So freedom of your life in general.
Love it, brother. All right. So the last question is: we're going to jump in my time machine. We're going to go back 10 years. What's that one piece of advice that you give yourself when we showed up?
Don't sell your Bitcoin.
I love it.
Yeah. I'd be a little cheeky with that. I mean, like obviously it's pretty easy to be like, oh, buy that stock. I think the big thing was, to kind of coincide with that would be just having some discipline and some forethought about your. Yeah, I mean, but then again, I took risks, and that's what caused me to be the person I am today. So I don't know, fail faster and fail harder, I guess it would be because that was a failure. So fail faster, fail harder, and you will be even further than I am today, previous Dion. So go ahead and take that advice, and that's all I could provide myself.
That's awesome, man. Appreciate it. I haven't yet had anybody say, don't sell your Bitcoin. So I love that we've got some new ones coming out for these answers.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, man. So thank you so much for being part of episode 51. And to everybody else that was watching, thank you for tuning in. And we will be back next week with episode 52. Until then, I'm Gene, the Enjoyment Coach. We'll talk to you later.
Cool. Thanks, Gene. Bye-bye.